Thanks. It's great to be here with you all today. When I was in law school, one of my constitutional law professors would tell this little story about a rabbi who taught that both truth and peace are noble goals. But in this world, in this imperfect world, it's not always possible to have both. And it's interesting because in the debate over God and evolution, both atheists and theists have wrestled and debated with each other about whether there should be peace between God and evolution, or about whether this is a time to basically stand your ground and defend certain core beliefs. The question that I was asked to research for my contribution to this book and this conference was whether capitulating to evolution on the part of theistic evolution would end the new atheist war against religion. And as I researched this question, I made an interesting discovery that there are actually two different camps within the evolutionary community and within the atheism community about how to approach religion. So I want to start off by introducing these two camps. They're called the New Atheists, which we've heard a little bit about already, and there's another camp called the Evolution Lobby. So let's briefly investigate these camps and ask how they approach the question of whether God and evolution are compatible, and what the implications of that should be for religious persons who are trying to figure out a good strategy for responding to the challenge of atheism. So let's first look at the New Atheists. I think that William Provine, a professor at Cornell University, said the New Atheist position very clearly when he said that evolution is the greatest engine of atheism ever invented. Daniel Dennett is another well-known New Atheist. He's been around for a long time. He said that Darwinism is a universal acid which eats through just about every traditional concept. On the other hand, there's the Evolution Lobby, and they're a little bit different than the New Atheists. They're composed of both theistic evolutionists, people who do believe in God, and atheistic evolutionists. And their purported goal, at least what they say that they want to accomplish, is to increase science literacy. Now, of course, they redefine science literacy to mean belief in evolution. Whether or not you understand science is not necessarily as important, I think, sometimes as whether you accept evolution. But to them, science literacy is what supposedly matters most. And one of their core tenets is that God and evolution are fully compatible. Well, at least for some people, but apparently not for all. As a matter of fact, I want to talk about Richard Dawkins' take on the Evolution Lobby. He was quoted in the documentary Expelled that I'm sure many of you saw, and actually he coined the term, I think, Evolution Lobby in that film. And he says, there's a kind of science defense lobby, or an evolution defense lobby in particular. They are mostly atheists, but they are desperately wanting to be friendly to mainstream, sensible religious people. And the way you do that is to tell them that there isn't any incompatibility between science and religion. Now, am I saying that everybody in the evolution lobby, they don't really believe that God and evolution are compatible? No, I'm not saying it, and certainly many theistic evolutionists do. But it's very interesting that many of the leaders in the evolution lobby go around claiming that God and evolution are compatible, but in their own personal worldview, it doesn't seem like they believe anything of the kind. And I think Exhibit A for this would be our friend Eugenie Scott, director of the National Center for Science Education, the leading anti-ID political activist group in the country. And giving this talk today is a little bit, I feel a little bit of justice, because I've been to a number of Eugenie Scott's talks, and they always come off kind of like military briefings, where she'll put up pictures of all of us ID proponents, and then it's like, here they are, go get them. So I get to talk to you today about the theistic evolutionists and the atheistic evolutionists, and I'm not saying go get them, but at least we need to understand what they're saying. So she's a self-described evolution evangelist, and she insists that the NCSE's goals are not promote disbelief. Fine, I mean, maybe that's true. And the NCSE does actually employ at least one theologian. As Dr. West and Dr. Richards said, it's the ID opponents who have actually been the ones injecting religion into this debate. However, Eugenie is also a signer of the Third Humanist Manifesto, which is an aggressive statement which says that they want to impose a world without supernaturalism. It's kind of like the wedge document for atheism. She admits that evolution is threatening to those who take a human exceptionalism kind of view, that humans are separate from nature and special to God, as in some Christian traditions. And Eugenie's, again, her main goal is to get people to believe in evolution, perhaps at any cost. She says that to someone who is serious about religion, Darwinian evolution needs to be coped with, and it may not be psychologically easy. Unfortunately, the job of a science teacher is to teach the state-of-the-art science, and that means evolution. Students who do not understand evolution cannot be said to be scientifically literate. If it sounds like she's not really sympathetic to people who might have some objections to evolution, particularly religious objections to evolution, you're kind of getting the message. I think that's what she's trying to say here. But nonetheless, you have to teach and accept evolution. Another great example of somebody in the evolution lobby is our friend Michael Shermer. Very nice guy. He wrote in his 2006 book, Why Darwin Matters, if you are a theist, what could possibly proclaim the greater glory of God's creation more than science, the instrument that has illuminated more than any other tool of human knowledge, the grandeur in this evolutionary view of life? Of course, anybody who knows Michael Shermer knows that he personally is a self-described atheist. He's not just the world's most famous skeptic, he founded the Skeptic Society, and here he is telling religious persons what to believe about God and evolution. And in fact, he writes in the same book, ironically, that there is no God, intelligent designer, or anything resembling the divinity as preferred by the world's religions. So should religious persons trust people like Michael Shermer, who reject religion, to inform them on what they should believe about God and evolution? Another interesting case is Francisco J. Ayala. He's perhaps one of the most eminent proponents of the view that God and evolution are compatible. He's a former, I believe, president of the AAAS. He's a very eminent scientist and evolutionary biologist at UC Irvine who has contributed greatly to the field of evolutionary biology. He wrote in his 2007 book that Christians need not see evolution as a threat to their beliefs. The National Academy of Sciences actually conscripted him in 2008 to author the foreword to their book called Science, Evolution, and Creationism. And in that foreword, he wrote that God and evolution are, quote, fully compatible, unquote. And as Dr. Richards alluded to, he's even gone around arguing quite extensively that ID is blasphemous. But what does he believe about God and evolution? Should we be trusting his views on this subject as religious persons? What is Ayala's view on religion? Well, at a major atheism conference at the Salk Institute in 2006, he said, I know how you, Richard Dawkins, feels on matters of religion. I could agree with you on many things which I will not make explicit here. So he's not really being very clear on how much he agrees with Richard Dawkins. What's interesting is that he has been asked directly, is he religious? Does he even believe in God? And in 2008, the New York Times reported that Dr. Ayala will not say whether he remains a religious believer. I don't want to be tagged by one side or the other. So Ayala represents perhaps the most eminent proponent of the view that evolution poses no threat whatsoever to religion, and yet he categorically refuses to publicly answer simple questions about whether he believes in God. And he's been touted by Biologos, by the way. I think this is, he's welcome to believe whatever he wants. All these people are welcome to believe whatever they want, but it makes it difficult for me to trust someone when they won't even tell you whether they believe in God or not. By the way, I believe in God, if that you're wondering right now. Michael Ruse is another interesting example. He wrote a book in 2000 where he asked, can a Darwinian be a Christian? He said, absolutely. But, of course, Ruse is a self-described ardent evolutionist and ex-Christian. He says, I find it a great relief to no longer believe in God. And Ruse has actually sometimes made comments that help us understand why these atheists are actually going around promoting compatibilism between God and evolution. In an email that he leaked to William Dembski in 2006, he wrote the following. He said, I think that you, Daniel Dennett, and Richard Dawkins are absolute disasters in the fight against intelligent design. We are losing this battle, not the least of which is the two new Supreme Court justices who are certainly going to vote to let it into the classrooms. We are in a fight, and we need to make allies in the fight, not simply alienate everyone of goodwill. So his reasons for promoting compatibilism between God and evolution are strategic. He wants to make allies. He wants to help build a coalition to fight intelligent design. For him, at least, the real enemy are those who doubt evolution. And so whether or not God and evolution are compatible in his own mind doesn't matter. He wants to forge these alliances for political purposes and for legal purposes to help combat ID in the classroom. Another, my last example of an evolution lobbyist is Chris Mooney. He may look young, but he actually has written a number of books, including The Republican War on Science, which had something of an effect on the 2006 election. And Mooney's interesting because we can watch his evolution over time. In 2009, what I would call the new Mooney wrote that atheism is not the logically inevitable outcome of Darwinism because a great many scientists believe in God with no sense of internal contradiction, just as many religious believers accept evolution as the correct theory to explain the development, diversity, and interrelatedness of life on Earth. So 2009, Mooney is saying God and evolution, fine. You want to believe in both, that's fine. He's personally an atheist. He's very open about that. But he has no problem if you want to believe in God and evolution. But this was not always Mooney's line. As a matter of fact, in a 2001 article he wrote in Slate magazine, the old Mooney said that Darwinism presents an explanation for life's origin that lacks any supernatural element and emphasizes a cruel and violent process of natural selection that is tough to square with the notion of a benevolent God. So why did Mooney change his tune? What's going on here? Well, people pressed him on that question. Why did you change your tune on whether God and evolution are compatible? And he wrote in 2009, and the new Mooney wrote, I don't entirely disagree with this, talking about his Slate article in 2001, especially the article's observation that many students who study evolution will find themselves questioning the religions they've grown up with. I think that's true and all to the good. Still, I would not have written the Slate piece today. I've changed my emphasis. Well, why did Mooney change his emphasis? What's going on here? Like Michael Ruse, he gives us some interesting reasons. He says, what if Coyne and the new atheist, that's Jerry Coyne, what if Jerry Coyne and the new atheists are right and evolution or science itself isn't actually neutral? What if there actually is a fundamental conflict between science and religion? I fear that were the new atheists to somehow prevail on this point, the anti-evolutionists might wreak havoc in some court in the courtroom in a later case. This is one reason to be concerned about the new atheist position. So Mooney's reasons for wanting to go around promoting compatibilism between God and evolution are spurred by legal concerns that if atheism is too closely allied with evolution, then it might be declared unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court under something like the endorsement test. And so he feels the need to go around promoting the view that God and evolution are fully compatible because this will help keep Darwin in the classroom, keeping Darwin legal, essentially. So we can see the reasons why many of these atheists go around promoting that God and evolution are compatible. Let's now investigate the new atheist camp. And if you want to understand the new atheists, who better to turn to than to Richard Dawkins? Well, Dawkins has used this analogy of the Allies fighting the Nazi regime. And of course, in his metaphor, the Nazi regime and Hitler and his friends, the Axis powers, they are religion. And the atheists are like the Allies. And so he would see himself belonging to what he would call the Winston Churchill school, the people who are willing to stand up to religion, whereas the evolution lobby comes from the Neville Chamberlain school. And he says that scientists of the Winston Churchill school, by contrast, see the fight over evolution as only one battle in a larger war, a looming war between supernaturalism on the one hand and rationality on the other. For them, bishops and theologians belong with the creationists in the supernatural camp and are not to be appeased. So for him, the real enemy is not just creationism or intelligent design or whatever you want to call it, those who doubt evolution, it's religion. And he has a lot of allies in the scientific community. Jerry Coyne, who's an evolutionary biologist at the University of Chicago, says we don't just perceive religion as the root of the problem, it is the root of the problem. The new atheists are against religion because it is inimical to rational thought. And Coyne, in 2009, basically started a giant all-out blog war between all these atheists. And it started when he wrote this article attacking the evolution lobby, and he pretty much says exactly what I think Ruse and Mooney admitted. He says, the pro-religion stance of the NCSC is offensive and unnecessary, a form of misguided pragmatism. The directors of the NCSC are smart people. They know perfectly well, as Darwin did himself, that evolutionary biology is and always has been a serious threat to faith. Their guiding strategy seems to be to keep Darwin in the schools by all means necessary. So there have been a lot of other new atheists who have weighed in on the side of Coyne in this big debate. Sean Carroll, who's a physicist at Caltech, said, accommodationism is a rhetorical strategy on the part of some pro-science people and organizations to paper over conflicts between science and religion so that religious believers can be more comfortable accepting the truth of evolution and other scientific ideas. P.Z. Myers weighed in, of course, on the side of Jerry Coyne. He said the only way we can resolve the debate between science and religion is for someday religion be reduced to little more than a hobby or a little eccentricity that some people practice. And of course, P.Z. Myers says that we need widespread social stigmatization of religion to eradicate religion, something which, of course, P.Z. is more than happy to put into practice. I know that personally. Jason Rosenhaus, who's a mathematics professor at James Madison University, says that the only hope for a long-term solution to religion, of course, using the word solution here, is to marginalize religion in public discourse. I don't know if we can accomplish that, but I do know it won't happen without a whole lot of screaming and yelling. And this was when he weighed in on the side of Jerry Coyne, that the atheists ought to not be siding with the theistic evolutionists or any people who are religious in general. The only way that atheism can survive is if it goes on an all-out war against all forms of religion. So there have been a number of strategies that people have developed to appease the new atheists and evolutionists. One is to go around claiming that science and religion are 100% separate, which is often called the non-overlapping magisterium model of science and religion. Another strategy is to simply capitulate to evolution, and there are two ways to do this. You can change God to fit evolution, or you can change evolution to fit God, and this ends up really satisfying very few people, whether they're Orthodox religious believers or Orthodox evolutionists. Let's first talk about the first strategy. Richard Dawkins comments on this Noma strategy. He says, Chamberlainites, going back to his metaphor that religion is like the Nazis, Chamberlainites are apt to quote the late Stephen Jay Gould's Noma, non-overlapping magisteria. Gould claimed that science and true religion never come into conflict because they exist in completely separate dimensions of discourse. This sounds terrific, right until you give it the moment's thought. And Dawkins is right about this because, of course, religion makes real claims about the world. And so if that's true, then how can religion and science be absolutely separate? Well, an example of somebody who claims that they're separate is, of course, Francis Collins, who writes in the language of God that science's domain is to explore nature and God's domain is in the spiritual world, a realm not possible to explore with the tools and language of science. So apparently, God's domain is not within nature, according to Collins. And of course, if God decides to not listen to Francis Collins and actually does something to intervene in the natural world, then the Noma model of science and religion falls apart. Another way, obviously, is to change evolution to fit with God. And this requires a little bit of backstory, this slide. In the mid-1990s, the National Association of Biology Teachers adopted a definition of evolution that called it unsupervised. Well, Eugenie Scott saw a PR crisis because this was going to anger a lot of theists and theistic evolutionists who view evolution as supervised. And so she went and persuaded the NABT to drop the word unsupervised from their definition of evolution. And this led to a great outcry from a number of evolutionary biologists who wrote to the NABT saying, the NABT leaves open the possibility that evolution is in fact supervised in a personal manner. This is a prospect that every evolutionary biologist should vigorously and positively deny. So the problem with changing evolution to fit with God is that a lot of evolutionary biologists feel like you're changing orthodox evolution. And as Dr. Richards alluded to, you look at what biology textbooks say, and they define evolution in terms of being undirected and unguided and chance and purposeless and not requiring any God. This is language straight out of evolutionary biology textbooks. It's all documented in my chapter in the book. So evolutionary biologists don't like it when you change their version of evolution. They don't see that as a satisfactory solution. What about changing God to fit with evolution? Well, this is not going to satisfy the new atheists either. Jerry Coyne says, a true harmony between science and religion requires either doing away with most people's religion and replacing it with a watered-down deism, or polluting science with unnecessary, untestable, and unreasonable spiritual claims. Kind of like the view that God was somehow directing evolution in this unseen manner that we can't detect, like what Francis Collins proposes and Dr. West talked about. Another person who doesn't like people who feels that you can't change God to fit with evolution is a philosopher and biologist at the University of Exeter named John Dupre. And he says that prior to the development of a convincing theory of evolution, there was an argument of sorts for belief in God. Consequently, I claim we now have no good reason for belief in God. And then, of course, there's Daniel Dennett, who says that evolutionists who see no conflict between evolution and their religious beliefs have been careful not to look as closely as we have been looking, or else hold a religious view that gives God what we might call merely a ceremonial role to play. So the bottom line is that you might not agree with all these statements about God and evolution. Fine. You don't have to agree with these statements. But this is what the new atheists believe, and this is what many atheists believe. And on a practical level, capitulating to evolution will do nothing to stop the new atheist war against religion. They will not be satisfied by any of the solutions that are being proposed to mesh God and evolution together. Whether or not we agree with those solutions doesn't matter. So, will theistic evolution appease the new atheists? This is Jerry Coyne quoted in Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, in 2006. And Coyne says, it's not just about evolution versus creationism. To scientists like Dawkins and Wilson, the real war is between rationalism and superstition. Science is but one form of rationalism, while religion is the most common form of superstition. Creationism is just a symptom of what they see as the greater enemy, religion. So for them, even if creationism were to go away, and intelligent design were to go away, and any opposition to evolution were to go away, if God was still around, they would not be satisfied. So just some closing points here. Many evolution lobbyists are atheists who promote compatibility between God and evolution out of a political strategy to keep Darwin in public schools. Many evolutionists are new atheists whose crusade against religion will not be stopped by the theistic evolutionists. Their goals will only be achieved when religion is completely eradicated. You might disagree with them, and that's fine, but your beliefs don't really matter to them. They believe that God and evolution are fundamentally incompatible, and they're very convinced of that, by the way, and they won't stop until God is gone. So if you're just looking at this on a purely pragmatic level, what is the best strategy, a winning strategy to respond to new atheists? Well, this has always been my position. Let's approach this through science. Let's use well-reasoned scientific rebuttals to the new atheists on topics ranging from evolution to philosophy and theology. Thank you very much.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.